So in today's video, I'm actually giving you a private training that we filmed for our internal clients that are part of the Consulting Blueprint and Scaling Blueprint programs. This is obviously, you can see on the play bar, a really long video, and that's because this is a recording that one of our head sales reps, Jeremy, made for our clients. And he had a $41,000 cash collected day inside of the business, technically like a $55,000 or $60,000 day. But if you're counting just the money that entered into our bank account that day, it is $41,000. And look, it wasn't always like this. You know, if you can scroll back on my YouTube channel, you can see the grind, the consistent. I mean, it was 4.5, almost 5 years ago that I started this journey. And, you know, I don't believe I'm special. I believe anybody can do it. But I remember, you know, toiling in my parents' basement, taking my first sales calls, trying to figure out what do I say, super awkward. The prospect would literally like hang up the Zoom call or hang up on me because they just didn't think that there's no way this kid has any authority. And I vividly remember getting rejected over and over and over again, and getting really, really, honestly beating myself up. Like I was scared, like I'd probably never be able to even move out of my parents' place. And then fast forward to today, it's just a wild feeling, man. And I know I'm reflecting a little bit and you just want to learn some sales training, but it's pretty crazy how far things can come when you're just consistent. And so in today's video, my head sales rep, who I've actually trained over the past about 7 months inside of our company, is going to be breaking down for you a bunch of the mental strategies, sort of, you know, the self-image and mental frameworks to overcome a lot of the sales issues you might be facing today in your business. He's also going to share with you some of the secrets that he's used to close more deals inside of my company. This is some training, you know, that we obviously charge a lot for, but I wanted to give it away just for free because I figured, hey, like, why wouldn't I help you close more deals in your business? Why wouldn't I help you grow your business, whether you pay me or not? It is my life's mission to help you make more money and impact more people and grow your independent wealth as a coach. And whether you pay me a dime or not, I want to help you do that. So I'm going to give you some of the best training we've had over the past, 60, 90 days inside of the community. And that is with one of our team members, Jeremy Pogue, who, I brought on kind of on a whim. And what's crazy is at first he literally closed 0 out of 17 calls. So he was 17 calls deep and closed 0. And then he happened to get lucky with one that was already on board, didn't need to hear anything, just paid. And so he had a really rough start. And so if he can do it, if I can do it, you can do it. Hopefully this is an inspiring video for you today. And if it is, be sure to leave a like down below. And like I said, you can see, scroll back on my YouTube channel, just scroll way down. I've been at this for a while. It is a long, consistent road to getting to where I've arrived to today, where I can afford, my dream lifestyle with my fiance. I can afford nice watches. I can run a company from anywhere around the world. But to be honest, I kind of just choose to stay in my office because I like it here. So anyway, it's been a long, slow, tedious journey. But yeah, this is a video. I almost don't want to hype it up too much because I don't think it's special. $41,000, like we could do it again, so I'm not going to hype it up too much. But anyway, enjoy the video. Hopefully you like this breakdown, and be sure to leave a comment or a like if you do, and subscribe to the channel to see more valuable content like this.
All right, you guys, welcome to the breakdown of a $41,000 cash collected day, and then also breaking down a $25,000 pay in full close as well on the same day. So pretty exciting stuff. I'm super stoked for this one. I prepared a lot of stuff for you guys here. But before we get into it, let's get some verbal yeses. Who's, maybe not yeses, but who's excited for this one? Who's looking forward to this? And looking forward.
Yes, sir.
Let's go.
Yes.
Looking forward to it.
I'm super
Let's
stoked.
go. I'm ready.
All right. Love it, guys. Love it. Cool. So I will, let's kick things off. Let's get straight into it. I want to be respectful of your guys' time, and I'm really damn excited. So cool. Here we go. So $41,000 cash collected day, and then a breakdown of a $25K pay in full. So we got lots to cover here. Took lots of notes. I'll kind of preface this as well with a couple things too. So I've kind of picked and chose like a few components of the sales call, of like the framework. I'm not going to be running through like the script and going super deep into that, but really just some more like higher level advanced kind of lessons and takeaways from these calls, from this one specifically as well, that will help you guys apply what you already know a lot better. So yeah, anyways, I also kind of chose the theme of this, like kind of go into war essentially, because I've been watching a lot of like 300 not too long ago. It's awesome. And B, I don't know, I'm just in that mindset of like no prisoners, So anyways, yeah, bit of a rundown there, but let's get into it. So prepare for war, pre-call preparation. I kind of broke it down in 3 main categories. So that's kind of the first one, right? Kind of the pre-call, preparing. And then the second one is actually getting into the call, right? Set the frame and in battle. And then the third one is going for the close and kind of wrapping things up. So got a lot to cover here, but I'll just kind of share some of the main takeaways that I learned from doing this and this, but then also going back, re-listening to the calls, re-watching the calls, and really kind of picking them apart a little bit too. So yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, I see that comment there, Carson. Absolutely. 100%. Cool. So failing to prepare is preparing to fail, right? A quote by Benjamin Franklin, and here's how it kind of relates to our businesses. So the way I see it is like, how did we do this, right? How can you set yourself up in a position where one day you can have a $41,000 cash collected day or be making 25K sales as well, right? And kind of having that as like the regular or the So I kind of want to preface this with a little bit of like offer positioning / marketing / mindset, and then we'll get deep into the sales as well, because it's all kind of tied together. It's all very related, and this will really help. So there's a quote by Dan Kennedy here, who's kind of one of the godfathers of like online marketing, and really it goes like, ultimately the business that can spend the most to acquire a customer wins. So in his context, he used that saying like, okay, it costs $10 to get a lead. 1 in 10 leads converts. It costs $100 to get a customer, right? If you design your offer in a way that you can liquidate the cost of acquisition by having like upsells or cross sells or downsells or something like that, then ultimately you can afford, like if company A can only afford $100 to get a new client, but then company B, for every new client, because they have upsells and stuff like that, one new client's actually worth 300. Well, they can spend 3 times more to acquire that one customer than before, but that's not what we're here for, right? You following that premise, I'm not talking about like the finances here. I'm not talking about money, right? Trey talks about the new currency when building a business, which is goodwill. So having goodwill in your market and kind of going off of that as well, not only goodwill, but also like what that does for you and kind of what that builds as well is like the goodwill then leads to true deep influence, authority in your market. And really just what that does is it compounds over time, right? Because at the end of the day, like, yeah, we're in business. A lot of us are in B2B here, but at the end of the day, whether you're B2B, B2C, it's like you're dealing with other people, and people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So if we can, in our marketing, focus on helping them know us, like us, and trust us a little bit better, what that does is it makes the sale so much easier to make on the actual call, because you're doing most of the selling before the actual sales call. So then it's a bit more of a layup. But then also, B, on the other hand, what that does is over time it compounds.
Ayun niyo po yan.
Let's make sure we're all muted here, guys. If you don't mind, we've got, how many people do we have in here right now? Anyways, 45 people. So yeah, if you guys can all mute yourself, that would be awesome. Appreciate that. But yeah, cool. So that's what I mean by that, right? The bigger your war chest, the more goodwill you develop with your market, the more influence, the more authority you have, the longer the distance you can go, right? Trey talks about building a moat around your business, around your castle. And the bigger the moat, the harder it is to get to the castle and to take it, right? So what that moat would be is like the extent to which you have that goodwill built with your audience and with your market. So what I mean by that in English is like, when I say it's a new currency, and Trey talks about this all the time as well, right? Like your goodwill bank account. The more you deposit in there, the more you can withdraw, right? The more goodwill that you build with the audience, the more you can ask from them, right? So withdrawing is like having call to actions, or like getting people to respond to your DMs, or having one-time offers. And all of that stuff leads to more booked calls over time. So one of the ways that we set ourselves up is like, I can't remember exactly how many sales calls we had that day. I think I had 5. And anyways, I think 4 of them closed, and one of them got approved for financing. So he should hopefully close. But anyways, the way to kind of do that for you is like, if we're really focused on the long term here, like build up your reserves of goodwill and authority. Because like, let's just take an example here. Like, how many of you guys that have been following Trey for a little while, maybe like a year or 2 or something like that, if Trey sent you a DM over Instagram, like how many of you guys would reply to that DM because it's Trey? Just give you some verbal yeses here. Would you guys reply to a DM from Trey?
Yeah.
No doubt.
Definitely. Yep.
Sure.
Okay. Rather than some random person who you've never heard of before that just kind of sends you a cold message out of the blue, right? Can you guys kind of see like the correlation here between like building up your reserves of goodwill, like Trey talks about all the time, and how that would lead to more influence and authority, leading to having prospects, because you have that deep influence and authority, having them more likely to actually respond to your marketing, to your messaging, and more likely to actually get on a call with you. And then that's how we can book so many calls, and that's how we can do the volume that we can. But it also, like, not only does this attract more prospects that are more qualified, and like, or not only does it attract more prospects, but it actually attracts prospects that are more qualified, better fits for what you do, and higher level players that can afford higher prices, right? Because they kind of see you as an authority figure, as an expert. So yeah, does this all make sense, guys? Give me some, drop some ones in the chat if you guys are tracking here. If you have any questions, drop it in the chat too. Just let me know here. Awesome. Wow, we got a ton of ones. Appreciate you guys. Jaeger said super valuable already. Awesome. Dude, we haven't even gotten into it. We haven't even gotten started. Look at it. We got lots to go here. Cool. So if that's making sense for everybody, then let's move on. So now we get into the sales side of things. So Alex Hormozi has a quote. I don't know if it was his or somebody, like maybe he heard it from someone, but he says, sales is like sex. You don't get better by reading about it, you get better by doing it. And that's 100% right. When I first started selling for Trey, I was 0 for 17. Like I was not good. I honestly, I think Trey's in this call right now. I don't know why you waited for me to get better, to be honest. Yeah, there we go, 0 for 17. So it's something that you can learn, right? There's some people that are naturals. I don't think I classify myself as a natural salesman, because when I first started selling with my agency offer, I was like 1 for 30, and that one was like $200 a month. So you can learn this, is what I'm getting at, right? The best sales reps are the ones taking the most calls. The more calls you take, the better you get. That's why I always say, get your reps in, right? It's like, let's say you are a, like, how do you get stronger at bench press in the gym? Spend more time under the bar, right? Spend more time bench pressing heavier weight over time, more practice, and then you'll build that muscle, right? And sales is the exact same thing. So we want to conduct ourselves kind of like as a professional athlete carries themselves as well, right? They watch like game tape footage. So watching over your call recordings, they stretch and warm up before the game, they cool down after, right? So they get themselves in the right state of mind. They make their body like rock solid there too, and warmed up, so that way they don't hurt themselves and they know what to do. They're prepared. But then afterwards, they cool down as well to make sure their recovery is solid. So like you get like take notes after the call, break down like what went well, what didn't, right? And then like workouts takes like continue to do sales training. Same with nutrition, like rest up as well. Like they have a system for all of that, and so do we, right? Like pretty much every single day, like I'm watching call recordings, I'm getting myself in the right state of mind, I'm taking notes, I'm doing a daily recap, a weekly recap, really running things by the numbers to see where I can improve. And yeah, just like the example that I already gave, bench press, right? It's just like muscles in the gym. Train your mind and your sales skills every single day and keep them sharp. And just like a muscle, if you stop training it, it gets weaker, right? You need to continue to train it because there's I know Alex Ramosi said another time, I'm probably going to butcher this, but anyways, it's like something along the lines of like, you guys have all gone through the sales training, right? You guys know how to sell. So like, it's more so just reminding you guys of what you already know and making sure that that stays top of mind than like learning new things and stuff like that. Like I've gone through the exact same sales training videos, literally the same 2-hour video, probably like 40, 50 times. And every single time I go through it, yeah, it's boring as hell, but I know I need to. But every single time I go through it, I learn something new. And I'm like, man, why did I not apply that on that last call? Like if I did that, it probably would have closed. And then like I've trained myself to become obsessed with this because you can learn how to sell. You will never have to worry about money ever again. Excuse me. So yeah, it kind of follows the principle of like, stay on top of it, right? How you do anything is how you do everything. So really just make sure that like, you don't just kind of sweep this under the rug. You show up to every single call with the same enthusiasm, the same intensity, the same focus, and you don't prejudge any prospects either, right? So a lot of the most dialed in successful people I know, they have a very strict routine and they show up in every area of their life with the same intensity there as well. So that said, having a clear vision and kind of being totally dialed in, knowing what you want to do, and really just being focused on that really helps as well. Because that way, when things do get tough, when you're in a dry streak and you've gone 0 for 10 on the last 10 calls, it keeps you going, right? To show up, do the work, and get results. And it also kind of helps to have like a goal to strive for as well. Like right now, for example, like for the month of April, we're shooting for 250 cash collected. And, and I think today we're on track for that. We're doing really well. And I think as of today, we've done almost more than did all of last month, because we have a clear, tangible goal to shoot for, right? I have my own personal goals as well on what I want to hit. And for example, like when you hit that goal, like treat yourself, reward yourself. What we're doing is we're training our brains to like actually do the hard work and show up and do the things that suck, so that when like you do hit your reward, then like you're training your brain to like you're essentially maintaining integrity to yourself. And especially if you follow through with it and actually reward yourself, then you're gonna be more likely to do it again next time. So does that all make sense so far, guys? With this section, drop some ones in the chat here, and let me know if you have questions. Cool. Yeah, reps create habits, 100%. Cool. Okay, sweet. let's say, which sales video are you reviewing for your top? There's a lot of them, like the one in this program, some YouTube videos, some other courses that I bought like 3 years ago. Just kind of keeping it fresh, stuff like that. But every single time, it's just it all helps. All right, here we go. Our war strategy. It's important to understand our primary objective of a sales call. I see a lot of the time, I know I struggle with this a lot too, is we get onto a call and it's like, we don't want to risk like offending them. We don't want to risk kind of like coming across the wrong way. And it's important to understand, like, we're not here to make a buddy. They're not on the call to make a buddy either, right? Our primary objective, assuming we can actually serve them and that we're being ethical here, like, is to actually close the deal so that we can serve them. Like the way I view it is like, somebody would be worse off if I don't close them, because then they're going to continue to stay stuck with the problem that is making their life so miserable for the last 2 years. Whereas if they do pay us money, we can actually help them out and then completely change their lives around and finally achieve their goals. So I'm actually doing more harm than good by letting them get off the call not buying, assuming it's something that they actually need, right? We're being ethical here, of course. But that's kind of the mindset that I approach these calls with as well. So that's something to keep in mind, something to consider. But it really just kind of helps me, like, because I know sales has like, it can be perceived as like slimy and stuff like that, but like that's not the way I see it at all. And if that's the way you view it, well, chances are you probably have a low closing rate. So do good work, help people out, and that's what we're here for, right? So we do that by understanding what influences them to make a buying decision, and then we lead the call accordingly. So if you're following the sales script and the training that we have in the program to a T, then you guys will understand this. But it's important to understand, we'll just kind of do a bit of a recap here. Like, why do people buy, right? Pretty much A to B, to get from where they are to where they want to be. Where they are right now is their current situation. It's not desirable. Where they want to be is something that is a lot better than where they're at right now. It's also important to understand that they're on a call with you for a reason, right? Nobody just goes around hopping on calls with strangers just to make a buddy online, right? They have a problem. We need to identify it, apply pain to it, and then ultimately prescribe a solution to it as well, which is, as we know, joining the program. So that's kind of why people buy, a very brief overview. In terms of when do people buy? People buy based on emotion and they justify with logic. And now we're going to kind of get into more some advanced things here. In terms of, we influence their logical brain with the actual words that we say, but we influence their emotional brain with how we say the words, how we deliver it. In other words, our tonality, our body language. And I'll add this in here as well. Like 90% of human communication is nonverbal, right? So the words that we say, like when we're communicating, the words that we say only make up about 10% of that. The other 45% is your tonality, yeah, and then the other 45% is your body language, right? So that's what that means, is like, when we do talk, it is very important what we actually say, like the words we do say, because for that 10%, we want to make sure that that's optimized. So learn the scripts, like know that like the back of your hand much better. But then how we say it as well is really important. And having watched a lot, like probably hundreds of sales calls from people in this program together, like probably one of the biggest things why they don't close is because, like, honestly, it's just kind of like, just sound really dull. There's no life, right? It's just like very, the tonality is just very tone deaf, right? There is no tonality. It's just monotone. And yeah, it's good to kind of remain a little bit stoic and stuff like that. But when you can really control your tonality and make sure you're asking or you're saying things in a certain way, what that does is it taps into that 90% that's nonverbal, right? Like how we say things is extremely important. How we present ourselves is also extremely important too. And what that does is it kind of like taps into their subconscious and uses that to our advantage to really just kind of communicate our objective, I guess, in the best way possible here, right? So yeah, there we go. People buy when we create both an airtight logical argument and an airtight emotional argument, right? So how do we create an airtight logical argument? By saying the right things. How do we create an airtight emotional argument? By saying the right things the right way and by asking good questions. So then a quick recap, the only 3 objections: uncertainty, financial, and partner. So I won't go into too much depth here. We've done that on some other calls, and if you guys want, I can point in a good direction there. But uncertainty is the most common one, right? And a lot of the time, if they say like, oh, too much money, chances are they probably do have the cash. They're just a little bit uncertain as to whether or not the value is there as well. So yeah, anyways, does that all make sense? Do you guys have any questions about any of that?
Yeah, Jeremy, I got one question.
Yeah, what's up?
So for example, I quite often have a situation in a sales call when a prospect says, like right away, is like they don't have the money, right? Like before the call even starts. So like, would you proceed on having a sales call, or just like ignore them and move to the other sales call, or you think this is just a smokes and screen?
I mean, sometimes they might not have money, but they might have access. They might be able to get access to the money. I think last week, like 5 people applied for loans to join the program because they didn't have the cash in hand. Or like, I think was it last week or the week before? I think Brandon had like 4 guys like actually apply for a credit card. They're literally waiting for it in the mail. So they don't have the cash on hand right now. If the value is there, they'll figure out a way to get it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, another thing here too is like why a lot of people struggle to close as well is like they are kind of like reactive to what the prospects say, and they're really just trying to be like agreeable and stuff like that. So when like you ask a question, the prospect gives you an answer, and they're like they give you an answer, then you're like, oh yeah, no, like I totally get that, like, and you're being reactive rather than like kind of being stoic, maintaining the straight line of what we're trying to accomplish here and moving forward in the right direction. So yeah, just kind of listening, diagnosing more so. But cool. Now let's get more into it. So yeah, as you know, the things here are just kind of funny. So war chant, you know, when armies are running into battle, they like yell and get themselves in the right state and like get fired up and stuff like that. And they're ready to really just do what they need to do to survive and win. That's kind of the same thing here, right? We need to get ourselves in the zone by managing the state. Now, a lot of these stuff that I've learned about tonality and state management and stuff like that is from the book The Way of the Wolf by Jordan Belfort. It's absolutely incredible. I'd recommend every single one of you guys pick that up. Way of the Wolf. Drop in the chat there. There's a lot of good stuff there. So that's a great book recommendation. It'll go into a lot more detail on, like Ethan, I see your question there about correct tonality for different situations. This will go into a lot more detail on exactly what those tonalities are and kind of how to master those as well. So a lot of what I'm sharing here is kind of from that as well. And it'll go into a lot more detail than we have time for today. So that's it. I picked a couple of things here just to really make sure that we're good to go. So I'd recommend everybody pick up that book. It is awesome. So cool. So getting in the zone, right? We must learn to trigger empowered states. And what we want to, the state that we want to be in when we come onto a sales call is one of certainty, clarity, confidence, and courage, right? The 4 C's, as Jordan Belfort calls it. So what that means is, like, when you get onto a sales call, like, you want to, like, because 90% of human communication is nonverbal, we want to like portray that, like, we have absolute certainty, clarity, confidence, and courage, because what those 4 states are is, like, they're empowering. In the mind of our prospects, we want to portray that, like, we want them to be thinking, wow, this person really seems like they know their shit, right? They seem very certain about what they do. They seem very confident in their ability to help me get there. And the way that they ask questions, the way that they present their offer is just extremely clear, and it just makes sense, right? What we don't want is to come onto a call like kind of scared, a little timid, nervous, stuttering, stuff like that. That's not the state that we want to be in. So therefore, we need to consciously choose to help, or consciously choose to get ourselves into the right state, right? And what that means is, like, it's kind of the difference between hoping you'll be in the right state to close the deal and knowing that you'll be in the right state. So we want to know that we'll be in the right state every time. And here's kind of how. So we choose what we focus on, what we think about, and that becomes a reality that we create as well, right? Our thoughts become our reality. And therefore we need to kind of uninstall limiting beliefs and then install empowering ones. So here's a couple ones as well. Like, do not judge the prospect to any degree before or after the call. I literally can't tell you how many people I've closed where I'm like looking at their form that they filled out or something like that, or even in the first few minutes, like asking them questions and whatnot. I'm like, oh, like, I don't know, maybe this guy probably won't buy. Like, sounds like they don't have money, something like that. And then all of a sudden, like, I just continue with it, and then all of a sudden they just like pay in full. I'm like, what? For example, like the guy that literally just paid us $25,000 up front on Friday, like heading into the call, I was like, there's no way in hell this guy probably even afford like CB. And then all of a sudden I'm asking questions, and then he's telling me about his business. Now he's a co-founder for this other business that does like a lot of money and stuff like that too. And I was like, oh, okay. And then when I said the price, he didn't even like squawk. He was just, okay, that sounds really good. And I was like, what? So don't judge a book by its cover. As easy as it is, don't do it, because yeah, there might be some people that you take a call with and they're like just totally a bad fit and stuff like that. But then there's going to be people who are incredible fits and will pay you a lot of money to help them out, and they'll turn into great clients. I remember my first client with my agency, I almost canceled her call because she booked it in, and then I looked at her LinkedIn. She didn't even have a profile picture. She didn't even say she was a mortgage broker, which is what I was helping. And I was like, okay, it's just like a spam thing. And anyways, we get on the call. She's an incredible person, and she was like just a brand new mortgage broker. So it was like, I judged the book by its cover. I probably would have canceled. I almost canceled the call. If I did, I wouldn't have signed that first client to get me traction, to help me sign more and more and more. And then I probably honestly wouldn't be here today. So don't do that, because you never know what's around the corner. But yeah, here's another mindset shift too that Trey and I kind of discovered a couple months ago. Like, go into the call expecting to help them get clarity and signing them up, right? Think of it more as like an enrollment call rather than a sales call, right? You're not trying to sell them, you're just really trying to lead them down the line and just enroll them, right? They're on the call for a reason. They have a problem. So what we want to do is prescribe, like, identify, explore it, prescribe a solution for it as well, and just make it a very smooth, natural process, helping them get from A to B. Does that make sense, guys, before we move on here? Cool. All right. Here's something else as well. Picking up from taking me back to my university days, psychology class, and then in that book, Way of the Wolf, Jordan mentioned it too a little bit. But Pavlov's dogs is like an experiment on how to kind of condition our brains to expect certain outcomes or expect certain things. So the gist of it is this: there's a starving dog, and then he would feed the dog a juicy chunk of meat. And while he was feeding the dog the meat, he would ring a bell. And then obviously the dog would salivate because he saw the meat. So he started salivating. But then what the guy would do is he would ring a bell. And then all of a sudden, after enough times, he wouldn't even bring out a chunk of meat. There would be no meat in sight. The guy would just ring the bell. And then all of a sudden the dog would just start salivating, right? Because what he did is he set an anchor, which was the bell, right? So every time the dog would hear the bell, he'd expect there to be food. He'd expect that juicy chunk of meat coming. So then every time you ring the bell, the dog's mind was programmed to expect the juicy chunk of meat and kind of be in that zone. And therefore its body would produce this certain outcome, right? So it's kind of the same thing with anchoring it. And that's kind of what we can do with ourselves on sales calls as well to kind of help us get in that right state, right? Get in that zone. So the bell is the anchor in that case. The act of ringing it is firing off the anchor. So it's a trigger. And then the two together is setting the anchor. So that way now it's just become so ingrained that like every time the dog hears a bell, it starts salivating because it thinks it's going to eat. Here's an example. Like, why do superheroes wear costumes? Because it helps them get into the zone, right? It says the costume's an anchor to shift their identity from Peter Parker, just some kid, to Spider-Man, superhero, right? From Clark Kent, some dude who works at like a newspaper thing, to Superman, and Bruce Wayne to Batman, right? So what that does is that anchor, their suit, their costume, serves as that anchor to help them get in the zone mentally and be like, okay, I'm no longer just some high school kid. Now I'm some guy that fights villains and saves people's lives and stuff like that, right? So here we go. Here's how we can kind of gear up for battle and put on our own armor. So one thing I've learned is like the way that you dress affects your body language and the way that you carry yourself as well, right? And body language is what influences your prospects' unconscious mind or subconscious mind. So earlier when we talked about like what we say influences their logical mind, how we say it influences their emotional mind. So that said, what that means in English is like the more, where are our three C's right here? The more certain, clear, confident, and courageous that you can present yourself, then like, especially like on a subconscious level, that taps into their subconscious mind as well. So that way, like it comes across that you are that expert, you are that authority without even having said anything, right? I know for a fact that like when I wear a nice shirt or when I wear like a suit or something, like I'm confident as hell, you know, I'm like completely dialed in. The first sale I ever made, it was a phone call conversation, like literally just on my phone, not Zoom or anything. And I was in my parents' basement and I wore an entire suit. I literally wore like a dress shirt. I had a tie on. I had my suit jacket tucked into nice pants. I had socks on, dress shoes. Like I was like dressed up like I was like going to a fancy, like to a wedding or something, right? Because like it put myself in that mindset of like, I am a successful businessman, right? How would a successful businessman that closes deals present himself? How would he dress? And then therefore, by setting that anchor, by dressing up and stuff like that, that helped me get my mind in the right zone, in that right state. So that said, that's kind of like our armor, and that's what we can use as our anchor. And this is one thing that I kind of slept on as well. I kind of neglected it for a little while. But then ever since I started doing it as of lately, it's been insane. my closing rate's gone up, my confidence, my clarity have also gone up as well. So dress nicely, right? Not only does it affect the way the prospect perceives you subconsciously, but it also affects the way that you carry yourself as well. So right here, when I wore a dress shirt tucked in with nice pants, as opposed to just shorts and a t-shirt. I mean, a few weeks ago, some of you guys that follow me on Instagram probably saw that like I closed like a couple deals in my shorts and t-shirts with my new ski boots on under my desk, right? But like, don't take that, like that's not what we should be doing. We should be dressing for success, right? I noticed that after reviewing my sales calls, the ones that did close over the last like week or so, comparing them with previous ones, like the way I carried myself was much more professionally, with a lot more clarity in the words that I did say, and then a lot more confidence in how I actually said them as well. So there's a clear, stark difference, because like when I dress, like it's not like you don't even have to dress it like you can wear just like a nice shirt like this. You can wear like a golf shirt or something like that, or whatever. But it really just shows it, like it shows the prospect that you care, right? And as a result, like because I was so much more confident and clear, it's like the frame was mine. It's like that's my call, you know. It's like I was the one running it. Like the frame was never in question, and that was crystal clear right from the start. So look good, feel good, wheel good. It's an old quote from my hockey days. Yeah, guys, do you guys have any questions about any of that?
The 4C's, Jeremy, what is the courage for? What does that stand for?
Probably just not being afraid to ask good questions that dig in, or not being afraid to ask for the sale.
I see.
You have a clear outcome in mind, and you kind of know your objective, and you're not afraid to get it. So, yeah.
How do you anchor like the prospect? Because when you mentioned the dog and Pavlov's dog, it made me think of the prospect and making them salivate at the outcome. Is that would the anchoring apply to the prospect as well on the call, or is it just putting on the arm a bit?
I mean, you could dangle a piece of meat in front of the camera. No, I'm just kidding. That's a good question. I would say, what would anchor them? Like, in terms of like the anchor itself, that's more so like it's something that you do repeatedly. Therefore, like you'd have to be talking to them a whole bunch, and every conversation you have would kind of like have to, like you'd have to kind of like plant the seed or like set some sort of anchors. That way you're kind of conditioning them to a certain response. So I'd say it's more so for us in this scenario.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Of course, good question. Glad you asked that. Clarifies. Awesome, cool guys.
Hey,
so
Jeremy, can I speak to something real quick before we move forward?
Yeah, what's up?
Just a little thing on that concept of like being the leader. There's this psychological concept that people want a leader. And so like if you can just accept that identity and just like lean into that self-image, it's so weird, dude. It starts in your own head. If you could just be like, yeah, I'm a leader. Like, what would a leader do? I think sales is leading, and the questions that you'd ask should imply that you are a leader. And so like I dropped in the chat, I don't know if you guys saw, drop a 1 in the chat if you're seeing this conversation I'm having in here with Liz. Like for example, I often ask how much cash someone has in the bank. Like literally today, I just got off a consult and I asked that question, and immediately the tone of the call shifted. Because I'm like, you don't have to answer that, but it's going to help me help you. And he's like, yeah, I've got this much. I'm like, okay, cool. Now all of a sudden I'm the lead because I know how much cash he has in the bank, but you know, he's not going to ask me that back. It's like, this is about him right now. Right. So hopefully that makes sense. If you ask those sorts of questions, very revealing, get them on the same page with you, get them to accept you as the lead. I don't know. Hopefully what I'm saying makes sense. Hopefully that's a good point.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Drop one in the chat, guys, if you guys are get some key takeaways so far. I really like that point, Trey, about like people want to follow a leader, right? And like, if we have a look at that module that you recorded about like creating deep influence and storytelling and stuff like that, it's like, well, why do we, like, if I look at some of my favorite movie characters and stuff like that, why do I like them? Because they're a leader, right? They embody those characteristics, and like, I want to be more like that as well. So we're always looking up to people, and stuff like that. Michael, I don't know how you're doing that, but yeah, there.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just did that by accident.
It's all good. It's all good. Awesome, guys. Now let's get into it. So that's the
Ask a
second
question.
one. Yeah, what's up?
Yeah, so if you have an audience like Trey, for example, and people have been following you for some time, you already have a lot of social proof. It's kind of easier to appear as a leader because you actually are one. But if you're using like flywheel, like me, for example, it's like the time I have with someone is so short until I get them on a call that it's kind of hard to establish myself as the authority.
That's a great.
This is like, yeah.
I'm glad you asked that.
Is this true though?
No, literally what Trey and Michael just said in the chat. It all starts in your head, and it's totally a false
Yeah.
because if they don't know who you are, then you can be anybody. And who you choose to be is a conscious decision that you get to make in your head, how you want to carry yourself on that call, because they don't have any idea who you are, right? So if you conduct yourself like a leader and like an authority and an expert, then for all they know, sure as shit, that's exactly who you are.
Yeah, not to interject again on your call, Jeremy, but I just got to add to this too, man. Like sometimes I have an advantage because somebody doesn't know who I am. It depends on the prospect. Like I'm 22, right? Like some people are really turned off by that and don't listen to the content or whatever. And so there's like reasons why people on a very surface shallow level wouldn't work with me. And so if somebody doesn't know who I am, I can often have more control. One of the scary things about having a platform is if you say one wrong thing, you've lost frame with your audience. Whereas if you're, on a call with a stranger, like you can create whatever frame you want. Now you can't lie, like don't lie, but you can present yourself however you need to, right? Like if somebody's totally new, like I want to challenge you guys, like what would you say about your offer, what you do that would build authority quickly? For me, it's like, yeah, over 20 million in client earnings. It's like, yeah, we do about, 2 million a year. Been in business about 4 years, team of like 4 people. Our top client does like 300,000 a month, just like stuff like that, right? It just would build a lot of that authority very quickly. And so your buzz phrases don't need to be as big as ours. They just need to exist, and you can create whatever character you want to create on that call. So hopefully that makes sense. Like often somebody not knowing me gives me a higher advantage. And I'll be honest, people that follow me for a long time, they're kind of entitled. They just want free stuff because they're like, oh, I've been following you on YouTube for forever. Now you're asking for $5,000. You know what I mean? It's just like, often it's not as much of an advantage as people think. It's really not. And I think it's a false belief I hear all the time, and it's just not serving you to say stuff like that. So I don't know. Once I got out of my own head in that way, my business grew a lot quicker. So
I got it.
Yep.
I had a question.
Absolutely. Yeah, what's up?
Regarding that same, I guess I can call it aiming for the frame, right? When you don't have big numbers, when you don't have a team, when you're new essentially, and you have the skills, what is it that you lean on then in order to establish that authority during the call? What's typical? What's something that any one of us could lean into regardless of what our specialty is?
That's a great question. And I feel like a lot of people kind of default to like, I need a ton of case studies. Whereas like to build authority, whereas if you don't have case studies, like what were we saying up here before, guys? Or was it? 90% of human communication is nonverbal. Establish your authority non-verbally. right? What we say, like 10%, that would be telling people about like, oh, here's some clients that got these kind of results and stuff like that. But like really with the 90%, like where you can really build a true rapport, but then B, deep influence and authority as well, is by showing, like actively listening, by showing them that you actually are following what they're saying, that you understand them and their problems. And this is where it's really important to understand your market and your industry and what they struggle with. And then they're going to feel like they're actually being understood, they're being heard. And what that's going to do is it's going to build you, like give you a lot of authority, because it's going to position you as somebody, as an expert, because only an expert will actually know what their problems are. And then what that's going to do subconsciously is it's going to portray that you know the solution to that as well, and that you can actually help them. So by having authority, or yeah, but by speaking by kind of conducting yourself just wholly with certainty and clarity and confidence and courage, that's what's going to give you a lot of authority as well, if you don't necessarily have a million case studies to back up what you're doing, right? And that's a choice. We have control over this, whether you like it or not.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course, great question. All right, guys, let's move into it. Heading into battle. So part 2, setting the frame. So this is kind of like on the call, kind of the main part of the call. I don't focus on this too much because you guys at this point kind of know a lot about it. But really, like some key takeaways here is like taking the high ground, right? The first 4 seconds, we have 4 seconds to make a first good impression, or a good first impression. And that said, in 4 seconds, like you can't just, like we need to come across sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, and a true expert in your field, right? This is straight from Jordan Belfort too. That's kind of his 3 core things. So that said, like we can't get onto a call and say, hey man, how's it going? Like I'm sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell, and like I'm an expert, right? We're not going to say that in the first 4 seconds. They're going to hang up on us. So how do we do that? We do that subconsciously through our appearance and our body language. And that's why this is so important as well. And the way that you really just conduct yourself, how you say things, is extremely important as well. So does that make sense, guys? Drop one in the chat. Or do you need me to elaborate on that at all? But I feel like it's pretty clear, right? Because nobody wants to get on a call, and especially nobody wants to pay you money if you seem really unclear, your mind's all over the place, and like your hair's messy and stuff like that. Nobody cares. Nobody wants that, right? And if you're boring, if you sound like you don't really want to be there, stuff like that, then like why would they want to have a conversation with you for the next 45 minutes? And if you really don't know what you're talking about, well, do some more research, right? Get better at what you do, and really just show that, so that way you can show that like you're an expert in your field as well. Because people want, like we said, people want that leader, but also what people want is somebody who's done what they want to do to help them do the same thing too. So you want to be sharp as a tack, enthusiastic as hell in your tonality, especially at the start, right? When you're like first getting on the call, like you really want to kind of just show them like you're a real person, that you care. And what that does, like we want to kind of like lower their defenses. We want to lower the walls and just kind of open them up a little bit. And then once you do get into asking questions, that's where you kind of tone things down a little bit, right? That's where you slow down, become a little more stoic, a little more composed, and then you kind of get down to business. So anyways, that's it. Gathering intelligence, kind of restating the problems in a clear manner. So this is like when we are asking questions, right? About their current situation, their desired situation. Just another quick reminder here, pretty much every sale is the same, in the sense that like whether somebody's doing 0 a month and wants to get to 10K a month, or if somebody is doing 30K a month and wants to get to 100K a month, they're still here and they want to get to here. They still have this and they want to achieve this. And we still need to create an airtight argument for this and this, right? So no matter which stage they're at in that process, the sale, the framework, and kind of our goals and objectives and how we operate is pretty much the exact same thing. Like the 25K pay in full is pretty much the exact same, literally the exact same sale as somebody who, like, when I sold like a $500 a month like agency retainer. It's like the exact same thing, right? So that's really important to understand, is that it's really just about asking good questions, figuring out where they're at, where they want to get to, along the way, restating their problems. What that does, like in a clear manner, what that does is it shows them that you're listening. It shows that you are portraying like empathy, that you understand them. And for example, when I was re-listening back to that 25K pay in full close, like he had kind of like 3 main problems, and like I typed them all out. But anyways, like his mind was all over the place, and he was like talking about all this stuff. And then I was like, okay, got it. There's a lot to unpack there, dude. But just to make sure I'm tracking with you, it sounds like there's kind of 3 core things here, right? First of all, like I forget exactly what they were, but it's like, first of all, like you want to make sure that your clients are getting great results. So having a look at your offer and the delivery and stuff like that. B, like do this next thing, and then C, this as well. Or actually, no, the first time he talked about 2, and then so I restated like, okay, so it sounds like this is one problem, and then this is the other one. Is there anything else that I'm missing? And then he was like, oh, well, yeah, there's kind of like a third thing, but like maybe not. I was like, oh, like what else is there? And then he talked about this third thing that was like actually a really important problem that we could help him with too. So by restating, I actually got him to say, yeah, that's right. And when I restated it in a very clear way and just totally nailed it, and I pretty much said to him exactly what he said to me. So it's not like I'm doing anything crazy here, but the way I said it made him think like, wow, you're like, he literally told me, he's like, he literally said it like word for word. He's like, wow, like, yeah, you've been like, you're a really good listener. Or he's like, yeah, I can tell, like, you've been listening. So like he felt understood, which meant his guards are down. I was positioned as an authority because I understood his problems. And I was somebody that he thought, okay, well, maybe this guy does kind of know what he's talking about, and he's not just some idiot, right? So that said, we also want to let them sit in the pain too. It's just like marinating chicken, right? The longer you let it marinate, the juicier it gets. It's the same thing with pain on the sales call. Another key takeaway as well is we want to make sure that we detach them from their ability to do it themselves. Because if they do feel like they can do it themselves, then why the hell would they pay you money? Right? So we really want to detach that. And if we feel like they are in a place where they feel like they can do it themselves, either ask other questions to kind of dig a little bit deeper and kind of like work around that to get them to come to the conclusion like, maybe I do need help, right? Or just if they're 100% dead set that they can do it themselves, then like I was just going to call them out. Okay, well, why are you on the call then? You know, if you can do it yourself, like why aren't you doing it? And then maybe you can kind of approach the angle of like accountability or something like that. So it's really important to hold the frame and really just don't put up with anyone's BS. And then what that does, when they admit their need to get help, it encourages them to be more likely to make a decision and move forward. Because maybe they thought that they were a little bit closer to their destination, but then after your pointed questions, they're like, maybe I am a little bit further away. Maybe there is a little bit more that I do need help with. And it seems like this guy might be able to actually help me get there. So yeah, does that all make sense, guys? Do you guys have any questions about that?
This is why in the script we call it the golden question, right?
Yep.
Yep. It's like identify where you want to get. Why can't you do it yourself? And like that question implies that there's reasons why they can't. So it's almost like they're going to invent reasons why they have to invest with you. It's pretty fascinating, the psychology of that question. When done right, it's like, yeah, here's the 6 things I need help with. It's like, okay, cool. Let's move forward then. It's pretty great.
Exactly. That's awesome. Cool, guys. Halfway through, how we doing? Is this a good call for you guys? Just give me some verbals here. What are some key takeaways so far?
Really good, really good.
All right, we got one really good.
Yeah, I like it a lot. I see a lot of
Jeremy.
correlation between copywriting and sales calls. So I like that a lot. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Ethan said legendary call. Adam's got a ton of ones in there. Rashad, awesome. Sweet. Well,
Let's get a few more takeaways before we move forward. Like what stood out? Because we're halfway through.
yeah,
It's like 2 or 3 more.
we've covered a lot of ground here.
I think something that I took away was the quote that you put in the chat, Trey: seek first to understand and then only look to be understood. I think a bunch of times we always try and over explain or try and present a solution to a problem that they might not have. And that just comes from a lack of really understanding where they're at. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've had so far.
Well, one of my biggest takeaways is to not judge your prospect before you hop on a call with them. I definitely have done that before, and the prospect ended up being incredible. So
I would add up is dress to success, definitely. Like approach the call with a mindset like if they don't decide to be, they don't decide if they don't decide to work as a client, they are making a huge disservice just because they will be better off working with you.
I like when you brought up that people are looking for a leader. And so if you position yourself in that way, carry yourself as a leader, things just fall into place.
To add to that, I like that a lot of the things that make you a leader are not involving things that come out of your mouth, from the things you do, the way you look, the body language that you bring. All of those things I think are really undervalued, and we always focus on what we say when a lot of the times the things we're not saying are the things that have the real impact.
And
Exactly. Go ahead, Anu.
be willing to take the lead and listen to what they're saying, but also hear what they mean.
To follow up with Mike's point, I think people focus too much on the script and get hung up on making sure they're saying the right thing. I think like Jeremy said, or even Trey, dancing and listening to music before the call is really important because it gets you in the zone. It gets you in the right mindset, and it takes away like the stressor that a sales call can lead someone to feel like they have. It's not that stressful at the end of the day. There's billions of fish in the sea.
Clarity and confidence. You need to be confident in what you're selling, and you need to sell yourself first and before you go selling your stuff to somebody else.
I liked when you said to frame it as like an enrollment call rather than a sales call. Just helps with like the diagnosis and like kind of getting out of your own head and stuff.
Yeah, that was a big one for me, for sure. Awesome, guys. Great takeaways so far. We're about halfway through, so we've got a lot more ground to cover, and then we can do some Q&A towards the end as well, if we got some time. So I know we have kind of been doing a little bit of Q&A as we go, which is great. Yeah, let's get back into it. Cool. So we've covered this. Take no prisoners. Hold the frame, right? Maintain composure of your tonality, especially after finding out how good of a fit they really are. So this was This was a big takeaway from that 25K sale as well. And it actually, it turned out okay in the end, but that was one of the biggest lessons that I learned from that. And Trey kind of pointed that out for me as well after watching that call. Yeah, exactly. You called me out on that because like I kind of judged him a little bit, and I was like, oh, like yeah, it might be good here. But then all of a sudden, when he started talking about how he's like a co-founder for this NFT project, and they did like 500 grand in a month, and I was like, oh, now we got somebody who's actually like, who actually could be a good fit here, right? So that said, like that's not good. We don't want to do that. We want to be like, oh, that's it. Like that's kind of like we want to maintain that composure and remain like kind of stoic towards that and not judge them. Don't cast any judgments before and then also after, because afterwards you can kind of tell in my tonality I was like a little more upbeat and like, oh man, like I really want this, and like I was being more attached, which is the opposite of what we want, right? So it's good to kind of give them a little bit of encouragement sometimes, but like don't overdo it, right? Remain a stoic doctor, somebody who's there to just diagnose, not a friendly coach who's there to make a buddy, right? That does more harm than good. So yeah, stoic doctor, you maintain composure of your tonality, and you're there to diagnose, right? You're not there to just have a bubbly conversation and make a friend that you're never going to hear from ever again. So cool. Declaring victory, going for the close. Here we go. All right, going in for the kill, presenting the offer. So after you've explored their current and desired situations, you've built up some pain and let that marinate with them a little bit, and then talk about their desires and why they want to do the thing so badly, and how awesome life is going to be, and then also how they can't do it themselves and that they do need help and that they want to do it right now. Then we present the offer. So tonality matters. It is extremely important when presenting your offer as well. You want to be, you want to show them like you're really excited and that you are 100% confident and you can help them literally do everything that they want, right? You want to portray to them that like, dude, I would sell my mother this product if she had a business. Like that's what we want to come across, because like we said up here before, and this is kind of why I threw the objections things in here. The most common one is uncertainty, right? They're going to be a little bit uncertain coming into the call of like, A, will this work for me? B, like, is this the right thing? C, does this guy know what he's talking about? Stuff like that. There could be all sorts of different kinds of things here as well, right? So we want to alleviate this concern and prevent this objection from coming up, or prevent that from stemming into an objection as well, through our tonality, through the way that we say it, right? If we're like, oh, well, yeah, like I think I might be able to help you. Like first we can start with this, and like here's where I think we might be able to go, right? It's like, hell no. Like, dude, like literally the first thing we do right now is like, we'll start with this. Once we get that done, then we'll go into this, right? Boom, boom, boom. And then all of a sudden, like 2 months from now, like you're going to be pulling in X amount of money, or like booking X amount of calls, signing this many clients, blah, 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 right? And then they're like, oh shit, this guy knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about here. And what you're doing is through your tonality, you're portraying your confidence and your conviction in the sense that you can 100% help them with the transformation that they're looking to achieve. Therefore, if they were uncertain, they're kind of looking for that leader to give them that certainty. So we need to embody that role of a leader to give, like, to kind of subconsciously portray that certainty, because like I said before, a lot of the time, like most of our communication is nonverbal, So therefore, like, we need to give them that certainty subconsciously, tap into the emotional side there, but then also with the words we say and kind of how we say them, really tap into the logical side too. Cool. So be enthusiastic with high energy, talk about your offer, right? So for example, one of the sales that I made, it was another painful for CV on Friday. He asked a question about mindset training, right? He's like, do you guys have like any like mindset training? I was like, oh, do we ever? And he's like, oh, right. But like the way I said it, he was like, oh shit, okay, you know? And I could tell that like that really lit his eyes up, because I was like, oh dude, do we ever? Like, this stuff is like, the mindset training is incredible. Like, honestly, like, if all we can help you do is like see the world differently and actually act as the business owner who you want to become, blah, 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 then like, he was like, oh, okay. And now the offer was so much more attractive. So yeah, really important to do that, because what I hear a lot of the time when people present their offer is like, they lack a lot of confidence, right? Their tonality comes across as super weak, and that they don't really believe in their offer themselves. And they're kind of stumbling upon your words, stuff like that. That's not what we want to do, right? As Alex Hormozy says, when we're in the red zone, we don't want to, like, we can't afford to screw anything up, right? This is where you need to have this rehearsed, have this dialed in practice. So that way, when you present the offer, you present it in a very clear, concise, confident way, and a clear, concise, confident tone as well. Because when you're in the red zone, that's not the time to think about what you should say or how you say it, or to practice saying it. Like, that's when you should have it just completely dialed, and you know exactly what you're going to say, how to say it the right way as well. So cool. Next point, prospects on the call because they're interested and primed to buy to some degree, right? They're probably on the call because they expect, like, they have a problem, right? And they're interested in finding a solution. And a lot of time people are like, they kind of know that they need to pay for that solution. So kind of what we talked about up here as well is like, we can influence the extent of this degree by giving them the certainty they're looking for through our tonality, right? So if you are yourself 100% sold, excited, and convicted about your offer, it does not go unnoticed. They pick up on that subconsciously. What that does is that influences their emotional side of things, creates that emotional airtight argument. So they're like, subconsciously, what's going on in the back of their mind, they're like, oh shit, this guy seems pretty stoked about this. You know, this guy seems pretty fired up, and he seems very confident this could work. Maybe it can. And then now, logically, through the words that you say, that's when you kind of present that airtight logical argument to really just solidify things. And then their logical brain's like, yeah, you know what, it kind of does make sense. I can kind of see logically the step-by-step process and how this can actually help me get there. And then emotionally, they're like bought in too, right? So super important. Here's another point here, calling and reinforcements. So for example, like using social proof, case studies. One of the most important things to keep in mind is that they're going to be wondering, like, will this work for me, or worse to that effect, right? So social proof, like having case studies of similar clients you've helped make a similar transformation, helps to address this concern. Now, everybody, I don't want to hear, oh, well, what if I don't have any case studies? We kind of talked about this earlier, right? Get a case study, and then you can do this as well, right? Once you get that first case study, you're good to go. So do whatever it takes to make that happen. But anyways, one of the things as well is like, they asked, like, one of the questions that guy asked me was like, okay, and like, have you guys worked with anybody else like in a similar situation here? I was like, oh yeah, actually, like, one of our other clients, blah, 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 was like in a pretty similar situation. And then I kind of just like relayed the emotional side of things. Like, yeah, like before, like, he had this going on and he was kind of struggling with these things. He was making him feel like X, Y, Z. And then we started working together. We helped him build this out. And then now all of a sudden, a couple months later, like things are going really well. He's booking X amount of calls, making X amount of money per month. But really at the end of the day, he's just like really proud of what he's been able to build and like tapping into the emotional side there. Kind of talk about the emotional transformation as well, because that's really what's going to sell them. And I think it was Vinny who said like he can see the correlation between sales and copywriting here. Like copywriting is literally just sales in print. But what makes people buy from copy is like the emotional side of things too, right? So yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. But yeah, so that really helps, right? And then what that does is it does kind of alleviate like, will this work for me, to the extent of like, okay, does this person know what they're doing? But then if like to make up for this, to compensate for a lack of reinforcements, what we can do is we can kind of control this a little bit with our tonality and portraying that we do know what we're talking about through the way we say things. So yeah, does that make sense, guys? Now let's get into some objection stuff. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Drop one in the chat if you guys have been following.
I have a quick question before we get into the objections. Just like earlier you mentioned, when like they show that they're a good fit, like to stay stoic and not really respond. And then here you said to like come in with enthusiasm when presenting the offer. So my question is like, that enthusiasm level, should it be the same across the whole sales call? Or like when you get into the offer, it should be like way higher than like when you're asking the questions?
Yeah, that's the thing. We need to learn how to control your tonality, right? So like at the start of the call, I'm like, hey man, how's it going? Like, how's your weekend? Blah, blah, blah. Right. And then once I started asking, and then like, I'm like, cool, man. Well, hey, if you're good to go, we can just kind of dive right in here. I can just kind of kick things off, get it started. And then like my tonality, I'm bringing it down, right? I'm bringing it focused. And then like, cool. So how this call is going to go is this. And then I ask a question like, so what's got you spend some time with me today anyways? Right. So I went from like high pitch, like, hey, like, how's it going? Blah, 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 to like, all right, let's get down to business. Let's figure out what's going on here. Right. And then same with like, I kind of maintain that a little bit while asking questions, doing that intel gathering. And then when I do present the offer, that's when I kind of bump it up a little bit. Right. Because I wouldn't say like super like excited. I don't know if that's like the best word, because that might come across as like, I don't want that to come across as like desperate almost. I want that to come across as like, I am confident as hell that I can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be. Right. That's kind of what we want to portray. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So kind of controlling it based on like the context and the situation.
Bingo. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So we're almost there, guys. Almost there. And then we can dive into some Q&A. But this is the good stuff. So smoke screens, the real secret to handling objections. So kind of what we talked about up here. The only three objections: uncertainty, financial, partner, right? Everything else kind of boils down to that. Chances are they'll probably say something that is not the actual objection. They'll probably be like, oh, well, like, do you guys also offer this? And be like, and it's like completely unrelated. But then like what we want to do is like, we can't address their actual question. We can't take the face value of the question. What we want to do is isolate it and really boil it down to the root of the question. Why did they even ask that question? What's on their mind that led them to ask a question like that or provide that sort of objection? So I'll get into this in a sec with some examples here as well to kind of explain this. But yeah, like for example, this was a huge takeaway for me. This is a huge mindset shift that honestly kind of blew my mind, because I hadn't really experienced this a whole lot before. So for the 25K pay in full, right? His biggest objection was not money. He had the cash, right? But his uncertainty stemmed from, is this the right time right now? And then also like, he was kind of like, I know I need to make an investment like this because I know it's going to like level me up, but like, it also just kind of scares me because like it's a lot of money. I've never invested in something like this before, blah, blah, blah. Right. So these were like the real things rather than this. So it's important to understand, like, we need to isolate the actual real objection at hand and then talk about that. So for example, because money wasn't really an issue, if I, to push him over the ledge, if I was like, if I offered a financial incentive, be like, okay, well, honestly, like we could do like half now, half in 30 days. Like that wouldn't do anything because that's not the problem. Money is not the issue. Liquidity for him, whether it's like 12.5K today and another in 30 days, it doesn't matter for him, right? He could pay it all right now if he wanted to, right? That's not the issue. So that wouldn't do anything. And then that would probably butcher the sale because he'd be like, well, this guy's just trying to make a sale. He doesn't understand what I'm going through, right? We really want to isolate it and address the main concern. No, he wasn't even looking for a guarantee. He was literally just like, he came onto the call, and throughout the call, he kind of like, in his mind, he was kind of like in like a bit of a cloudy, unclear place. What he really needed was somebody to help him make the decision that he kind of knew he already kind of needed to make, right? I could sense like his old self battling with his new self, saying like, no, you don't need to do this, like stay where you're at, you're comfortable. And then he's like, no, I feel like I kind of need to do this to grow and stuff like that. So it's like the real objection was like more so emotional or spiritual with him, like personally. And then also the timing, like he's really busy and he's got some other projects on the go and stuff like that, right? So then I kind of helped him realize logically, this one was more of a logical approach. I kind of helped him realize like more logically that he would, like we'd actually help him save time. And then that like, we could actually help him with that. And he's like, okay, that kind of makes sense. And then the emotional, it was just like more so helping him make that decision rather than continuing to delay it. So there we go. Carson just said, I did the same thing for him and Mike. They just needed the push to do what they already knew we needed to do. Yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, does this all make sense so far, guys? Really making sure that you get down to the core root of the problem, the actual problem, right? Drop one in the chat if you guys are tracking here. Or if you guys have any other questions as well or something like that, let me know, because this stuff is pretty important. All right, might have missed it, but what was the first thing you asked him after he gave you the objection? I can't remember exactly what it was, but probably like almost like either a restatement or like trying to get down to the core root of the problem, right? Because I could kind of sense that like money wasn't an issue. And I was trying to understand like, okay, where did this objection stem from? What was the seed that this objection grew out of or grew from, right? And then once you get down to the core root of that, then that's when you can address the real objection at hand.
And something I'm going to add to that too, Jeremy, like I put in the chat, most of the time the objection isn't actually the objection. Like what they say isn't actually like what they mean. And so like the more you can peel back the layers of the information regarding their current situation, where they are now on the call by asking better questions, the deeper you can get, the less likely they are to put up a smoke screen later. So this is why like asking how much cash they have on hand, it's just for our niche. It's an example of a very intimate question, right? You can come up with your own version, right? Something that just like they really haven't shared with anybody yet. You know what I mean? Like I know this is gonna get a little bit graphic, but like there's a friend of a friend that I know does like porn addiction rehab. Basically, he's got like a program for that, and he's like, all right, how recently did you look? It just like gets really, it gets the prospect really open, you know. And so it's like, you know, I think Jeremy probably could have prevented that objection had he spent more time, and he still closed the sale. This is by no means like even a critique, but he probably could have avoided that objection if, I think, as I listened to the recording, he got excited once he heard about his earnings and saw that he was serious about investing. And I think that caused him to not spend more time diagnosing and really understanding the whole picture. You know what I mean? Does that make sense, everybody, what I'm saying there? Cool. So, yeah, just a thought.
Definitely. Cool. We got a couple things in the chat here, so we'll hit that before moving on to this next point. Ethan said, how do you differentiate between a good question and a bad question? Well, a good lawyer in court doesn't ask a question they don't know the answer to. Neither should we, right? The questions that we ask should be pointed in a way to help us kind of gather the intelligence that we need, that kind of gets them to come to our conclusion themselves. So what this all means in English is like a good question. What that does is like I'm asking a question to try to like get them to tell me about a problem they have, right? I'm not asking a question to like learn about like their dog's name or anything like that. I'm asking questions that are pointed to get them to tell me about a problem they have with their business. So a good question gets them to tell you about some sort of pain that you can then dig into, right? So it's pointed in a way that kind of like I'm asking a question that's pointed to get them to give me ammunition, essentially, to then kind of, or like leverage, so to say. Whereas a bad question is like kind of evokes like pretty much a dead answer, or like just something that's kind of off topic or doesn't really drill into the pain. And yeah, does that make sense, Ethan? Sweet, cool. Good question opens up the door to their objection/issues. Bad question leads to a yes or no answer. Yeah, exactly. Do you have types of buckets that you label the objection under when you get it? Yeah, uncertainty, partner, and financial, pretty much. But the most common is uncertainty. And like a lot of the time, even with like a partner objection, like they feel like they kind of know what they need to do, and they're like kind of uncertain about like, oh well, like did I make the right decision, and will my partner judge me for that if they do end up fine on the call, right? So a lot of the time it is uncertainty, and that's why we spent a lot of time on there. Cool. All right, guys, let's keep rolling. So here's another key takeaway as well. This was from one of the other sales, not the 25, but don't entertain questions that don't serve them, and just flip it back on them, right? A lot of the time what you guys are going to get is like people asking about like super like technicals or things that really don't matter in helping them get from A to B, right? So yeah, and then just prescribe like the real solution. So for example, like one of the guys was like stuck at zero for like the last like year or two or something, got no traction, and was asking about like all these little things and stuff like that. And like he asked like, oh well, do you have like VSL training? I'm like, and I just didn't entertain that question because I know it doesn't serve him, right? Like if you're at zero, you don't need to build out a VSL. You need to have an offer that works and book calls organically, so that that way you can train sales, and especially if you don't have any money in the bank. So I was like, dude, if you want to like ask me like VSL or Facebook ads and stuff like that, it's like I literally just said, I'm like, dude, if you want to continue being a service provider and making like no money and staying stuck where you are, like go buy a $500 course and learn how to do that. But if you actually want to build successful business, like the one that you were telling me that you do, and achieve like these goals that you have and stuff like that, we can help you do that. So I held the frame rock solid. I didn't entertain a question that didn't serve him. I flipped it right back on him. Said, dude, if you want to continue to stay stuck, go do some other stuff. Like I don't care, right? But if you actually want to do this thing, we can help you. So what that does is a couple things. So it separates the two alternatives. Like if you want to continue staying stuck and sitting in your pain, do this thing that you think you need, right? Oh, here we go. This should be a 3. So yeah, when you flip it back on them, it makes sure that you like, it really makes sure that you own the frame, right? You're holding the frame, and that asserts your dominance. It isolates like the real decision that's at play. And what I mean by this is like, it anchors you and your offer to their desired outcome. So like, if you want to continue doing this, like getting these undesirable results, go do this, go take path A. But if you actually want to achieve your outcome, come over here to path B, right? So now the real decision isn't about working with you or not. Now it's actually about achieving their goals or not, right? So you're really anchoring your program, your services to their actual goals. Does that make sense, guys? Do you have any questions about that? You guys see how this could be helpful, or how you could have used this in a call as well, asking about technicals? Because like the other alternative for this as well, if I didn't really like put my foot down and call him out on that, he probably would have asked like, well, do you have like Facebook ads training? Do you have like copywriting training? Right. And then now all of a sudden, like if I'm playing to his request, I'm entertaining those. Now I'm on my heels trying to defend myself. Now he's qualifying me, right? I'm like, no, that won't serve you. Right? Shows that I'm the expert. I know what I'm talking about, and I know what he needs. And then the decision was not whether or not like he's going to buy from us because we do or don't have VSL training. It was about actually doing actually achieving the results that he wants. Right? Yeah, exactly, Carson. Figure out exactly what they want so you can bring it all back to the main thing, right? Keep the main thing the main thing. That's exactly it. So if we visualize like a straight line, like he was trying to like venture away, and then I was like, no, bring you back down on the line. Let's stay focused here, right?
So Jeremy, I got a quick question regarding that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, what's up?
So like, how do you keep the frame, and like when you call them out, like how do you do it without sounding like maybe like rude, or because sometimes I do have prospects like that, and like on 2 occasions they just left when I just called them out. So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, yeah, like obviously I could do something wrong, but like it keeps me wondering like how to say it in a way where you just sound like professional and like you keep the authority.
Yeah. Okay. I'm glad you asked this, because this kind of drives home the importance of tonality here, guys, because pretty much saying the same thing has led Michael having 2 people just leaving the call on him right away. Whereas when I say the same thing in a different way, they pay me thousands of dollars on the call, right? So you guys can kind of see how you say what you say is really important. So I'm glad you asked this question, and it kind of goes along like Jaeger's question there too, about like a go-to phrase, right? So a great question, like a great line or whatever you want to call it, a phrase, is like, dude, and notice my tonality here too, right? I'm coming across empathetic, right? It's like, dude, do you mind if I be honest with you instead of being nice? And then now I'm asking for permission. Now they're going to give me permission to rip them apart, right? So it kind of sounds funny, but anyways, right? So, and then now you're really just like person to person, you're connecting on a deep level, right? And they're like, yeah, sure. And be like, dude, like, honestly, man, like, I really don't think that would serve you, right? And for example, with this guy as well, what I said is because like on the form he filled out, and then also at the start of the call, he told me he tried like 10 different business models, like shiny object syndrome, like crazy, right? Tried all these different things and was still stuck and never really got the results he was looking for. And then now he's asking about Facebook ads, asking about VSL, asking about copywriting training, like all the stuff that really doesn't matter. And I was like, honestly, dude, like based on this question and like what you told, like what we were talking about earlier about how you've tried all these different things, but none of them really worked. You're kind of still stuck at the same spot right now. Like, I really don't know if that line of thinking is really serving you, right? Because like, if you want to like become a service provider, like if you want to keep being a service provider and learning these things, but staying stuck at zero, like Facebook has a free course on Facebook ads, or go buy a $500 course in VSL. But like, and then we'll have the same conversation we're having right now, and it'll be in the same spot 6 months from now. But if you actually want to build the business that like you said you really wanted to, then like we can help you do that, man. And I just kind of flipped it back on him. But like, notice my tonality. It's like, I'm like, what I'm saying in my tonality is like, I care. I know we can help you. And I understand where you're coming from, right? We want to make them feel like they found a home, rather than like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, of course they're going to hang up on you, right? If you're taking a direct approach, it's like, nobody wants that. But we pretty much did the same thing, but a bit of a different way to kind of come to a bit of a different conclusion. Does that make sense, guys? Do you have any questions about that?
Jeremy, I'd like to actually make a point on this. When we had the call with you last week, me and Mike, I feel like it wasn't the exact same thing, like, oh, do you guys do this? But we had a statement similar. And because of the rapport that you'd kind of built throughout the call, like, I didn't know who you were. I'd seen Trey, but I didn't know Jeremy was a part of the system. With the rapport that you'd kind of built up until that point, when you were like, I don't think that's what you need right now, I was like, shit, he's right. This guy's got to be right. He knows what he's talking about. He's done this before, you know? So setting up the call to get to that point, you have the position of power to be like, that's not what you need right now. And they'll be like, damn, maybe he's right.
Awesome. Appreciate you sharing that. There we go, guys. It works.
And Carson, do you think you're getting what you need in this program?
Very much so. I'll attest, man.
Good.
A bold question in front of a big audience, Trey. I'm just kidding. Cool.
I'm bold, bro.
Yep. As you should be. Sweet. So another point here before we get into the bonus. I love that. Yeah, I'm excited for that one. But last point here, guys. Don't bend to the requests. I guess we kind of just covered this, right? Hold the frame. Tell them why you do things your way and how it actually benefits them. So a lot of the time, what they think they need is totally different from what they actually need. That's why they're stuck, because they're focused on the wrong things. So I feel like we kind of just drove this point home pretty easily. But anyways, guys, I got to run to the bathroom real quick. I'll be back in like 2 minutes, but when I get back, let's get a couple key takeaways so far from the main things, and then we'll get into the bonus. So I'll be right back in a sec, and then I'll get into my bonus, the favorite sales tactic that I'm literally 3 for 3 on so far, and it's so funny. Can't wait to share it with you guys. So I'll be right back.
Jeremy's memeing you guys right now and you don't even realize it.
Everyone having a good day?
It's beautiful outside. Does anybody want to see my dog?
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Jeremy, 1 second. I'm gonna show them my dog. 1 sec.
All right, let's see the dog.
See it. Is this the sales tactic? Whip out your dog?
Yes. No, guys, this one's so funny. Like, I can't believe it works, and it's too funny. But wait, oh, there's the dog.
The young champion.
Oh yeah, this guy's gonna be a lion, bro.
Cute.
Already looking bigger than those past couple of videos, honestly.
He's getting huge.
Yeah.
How old is he?
I think just a few months or something. Cool, guys. Are you guys excited for this one? Our bonus here towards the end.
Absolutely.
Literally 3 for 3. One of these was a 25K. And in such a funny story too. And then the other two were for CB. So yeah, let's make sure I didn't miss anything in the chat while it was gone. But no, Sal said Jeremy's taking his own advice to suit it up. Man came to take the frame. You got it. Jeremy said, is this an authority tactic? Carson, Jeremy's so important that he had us waiting. All right, guys, let's get into it. So when to use it? Right after you talk about the price, right? And you're answering a couple of questions, objections, and stuff like that. And you can kind of tell like maybe they're on the fence and need a little bit of a nudge. This is when you just hit them with it. It's so funny. I literally can't believe it works. And when I shared this with Brandon and Trey on our like sales check-in last week, like they're killing themselves. So anyways, here it is. So when you drop the price and then you're handling some questions, some objections and stuff like that, right? And this is literally the oldest trick in the book for car salesmen. It's so funny. But anyways, like when you can tell they're on the fence and need a bit of a nudge and you might get hit with like, oh, I need to think about it or like something like that. Like what this does is it really forces them to make a decision. So literally what I do, and here's the thing, I promise you guys, I'll quit beating around the bush. I will get into it in a sec. I know it's probably annoying, but I did this unconsciously and it worked on a 25K deal and it was crazy. And then literally like 3 days later, I was talking with my fitness coach, a trainer, and then he like told me about this like sales tactic. I was like, dude, I literally did that on Friday. Like I did that like last week and it worked. He's like, dude, it's literally the oldest trick in the book. He's like, every time I'm going to buy a car, they've literally did this with me and I bought in the car. And I'm like, oh shit, okay. And then I was like, I got to try this like consciously. And on my next 2 calls, I did it and it worked. So anyways, yeah. So the thing is, hey man, I gotta run to the bathroom real quick. Do you mind if I be back in like 2 minutes? But when I get back, we can have a decision. Does that sound good? And I literally just like mute my mic, take off, right? And when I get like what that does is so many different things. Like this pull feeling, because I'm pulling away. It's like, dude, like I gotta go take a piss. Like I'll be back, right? It detaches you from the outcome, from the sale. And kind of what Carson said in the chat there about like Jeremy is so important, he had us waiting, right? It's like you guys got to wait on me. I got to go do my thing when I get back, let's make a decision, right? So it shows that you're kind of ambivalent to whether it closes or not, right? And the number one rule of negotiation is like the person who cares the most loses, or the person who cares the least or needs the thing the least wins, right? And it subtly tells them that they need you more than you need them. And it also like helps them make a decision without feeling pressured, because now I'm gone. Now it's just them in their minds, right? But then it also, what that does is it also just like leads them to making a clear, concise decision, because now there's urgency. Now they're like, shit, I've got 2 minutes to make a decision here before this guy gets back. So I did it unconsciously the first time because I literally drink a ton of water and like every single day, and I literally have to go all the time. But anyways, yeah, it's literally worked 3 for 3 so far. And it's so funny because what it does is like, I just find it hilarious, but like it does just create that like that urgency to come to a decision, to make a decision, because the way you frame it is really important too, right? It's like, hey man, I got to run to the bathroom real quick. I'll be back in like 2 minutes, but when I get back, like, then we can have a decision. Does that sound fair? And they'd be like, oh yeah, dude, like go for it. Like, I don't want to hold you, like, you know? So it's like, they can't say no to it. And
yeah,
then,
I'm gonna drop something too, Jeremy, on this. Guys, check my Instagram story. I literally did it today and it worked. Like the guy posts and I repost it on my story. Like, can I share my screen real quick, Jeremy?
Yeah, what's that?
Give me that screen share. I didn't go to the bathroom. What I did is it was actually legit. My fiance came in and so I was like, hey, I gotta go like let my fiance in, hug her, kiss her. I'll be back.
Yeah.
And so give me screen share for just a sec here, Jay.
Yeah, you should. That's so funny. We're pause.
I can't screen share. Yeah. Go to my story though. It's like the third to the last slide.
This one?
Yeah. See it? It's just my empty chair sitting there. And the guy is like just sitting there contemplating. I was gone for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's too funny. The first time I did it, like unconsciously, what I did is like, I literally had to go. So I went to the bathroom, but it was a 3-way call. So it was like the prospect and his partner, and the partner was super skeptical because they weren't on the first call. So now it was like the first guy was sold, the partner wasn't quite sold. So now it was like, so when I went and I came back and started walking back, I could hear them. They were just going at it. Like they were like really weeding out the real objections, right? The second partner was like actually telling them really what their concerns were. And I literally just like stood around the corner for like 2 minutes, just listening to all this. And when I got back, and like we made a decision and they moved forward. So that worked, and it was so funny because yeah, it worked without me even being aware of it at all. And then I tried it 2 more times since then, and it's worked like a charm because they feel like they're not being pressured, and they're forced to make a clear, concise decision as well, right? And it also detaches you. And just like in dating, right? The more like clingy you are, the more like needy stuff you are, the more you're trying to like push, the more they pull away, right? Whereas it's like attraction, right? It's like the more I pull away, it's like the more they want to be like, the more they push, right? So it's like this push and pull dynamic, kind of like magnetism and stuff like that. So anyways, who thinks that is so funny, and who's going to try that on their next call?
I'm definitely trying that.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm going 3 for 3 this week with that.
Yeah, it's so funny. But yeah, so There we go, guys. That's all the content that I prepared for today, sharing a lot of my lessons from that one day specifically. So yeah, guys, it's really important. Like with this one as well, though, the tonality, the way you say it is super important, right? So yeah, Caleb, I would say like kind of hash out like how much objection handling do you do before pulling that out. I would say like make sure I'd say like cover their main concerns, like maybe ask a couple or like handle a couple things, and then once you can kind of tell like they're like on the edge and like they're like, oh, like it sounds good, but they're like probably in their mind they're like, will this be worth it, will this work for me, and stuff like that. And you've already answered a couple of like their main questions and isolated a couple of objections as well, then that's when I would pull this out. But yeah, guys, was this a good call today? Did you guys learn anything today?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Great call.
Yeah, solid.
Really good job, Jeremy.
Appreciate it, guys. Appreciate it. Yeah, just like Sydney said in the chat there, everybody, literally whoever closes a deal with this tactic, you have to put in the wins channel. You have to let me know. Like, seriously, I find this is too funny. But yeah, so sweet, guys. Cool. Well, this was a ton of fun. This was a great call. Appreciate you guys sticking around to the end as well. But yeah, I will. I'll drop the link for this document in the Slack channel so you guys can access it and kind of go back over it. The call recording, we'll probably upload that into the program as well at some point. And then, yeah, we'll go from there. But anyways, guys, 10 minutes left. Let's move into Q&A. I want to make sure that you guys, if you guys have any questions, we can just kind of tackle them head on right now. Well, actually, before we go into Q&A, drop some takeaways, guys. Let's get some verbal key takeaways here. Kind of like what we did at halftime. It could be towards the end or something from the beginning as well. I'll just kind of scroll through and help you guys remind you. But yeah, the bladder closed. Bingo. But yeah, guys, let's get some key takeaways. What were some of the here?
So I think it's just like definitely walk out, you know, when they're just having objection. But apart from that is, you know, definitely it's just like pre-framing, like before you jump on a call, make sure to put yourself in the right state of mind. Don't judge the prospect and ask questions that, you know, like lead to where you want, like that are really like digging really deep.
Yeah, solid takeaway.
I love the takeaways too. Keep them coming.
Yep.
I feel like confidence in the offer and kind of like just being confident and knowing that you can provide value to someone and jumping into the call with the understanding of if they don't get on with me, then they're hurting themselves. I think that's really something that if you just leverage in your head before you get into any call, it'll really change how you move throughout that call. It just makes sense.
There we go. Yeah, that's a big part. It's a big one for sure. Awesome. Let's keep them coming, guys.
Definitely how important like the pre-call is, like anchoring yourself, the making yourself confident and certain in your offer. Like that's huge. I feel like 40%, 30% of the whole document that you prepared is just a pre-call, just so you're in the right state of mind. And also just like making, like, I also love the people buy with emotions and then justify it with logic. So it's just shows how much of a, I'm just struggling with my thoughts here, but like how shows how important getting the emotion out of the prospect is. And making sure your offer is just airtight logically.
Awesome. Jerry, I'm still laughing at this. So good. Too funny. Was that a good bonus for you guys? Did you guys enjoy that one?
You gave us a preview 10 minutes before.
Yeah, I know. I had to give you guys a bit of an example, a live example.
Jeremy, when you were gone, bro, I couldn't help but be like, dude, Jeremy's memeing right now. He's literally just jacking all of our chains right now.
No, funny enough, I did have to go as well. And it literally, I honestly didn't plan that, but it happened to just be the perfect time.
So just like drink a lot of water before sales calls, basically.
Yeah.
Cool.
You've never swam faster in a race than if you have to piss during it.
100%, Carson.
That's too funny.
Although my water consumption is one takeaway, I would definitely say just the power of a question and really asking questions that take out half the need for explanation or half the need to continue to pry. It seems like a lot stems from the quality of questions you ask.
It's a great takeaway, Michael. It's like, if I had to sum up like two of my best pieces of sales advice, it's like ask really revealing quality questions. And then, as Stephen Covey puts it, seek first to understand, then only after seek to be understood. Right? So ask really, really, really good questions. And like, you know, for your own industry, you can come up with your own concepts of what a good question is. You know what I mean? Like mine is like if I notice, I'll be honest, like if I notice a prospect's giving me resistance and like they're like not really obeying my frame, I'd be like, all right, how much money do you have in the bank right now? And it's just like, what are they not going to answer that? They want help. But then like by doing that, they're going to open up so much. You know what I mean? And so what's that question that, you know, like if you're a business, like how much do you owe in taxes this April? You know what I mean? Like just, you know, getting them to share things with you that they really haven't shared anywhere else. And what's interesting is like, I went to therapy there for a long time. And after working with my therapist, she mentioned like this like strategy when you're first getting started in therapy, like for the first 4 weeks, you ask those hard questions. Because what it does is it gets the client comfortable with being uncomfortable. Right? Does that make sense? So it's really good stuff.
In a sense too, wouldn't it make it like any question you ask after that, it can't be much more difficult where they're really open up to speaking about everything once you get the hard question out of the way right in the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah, those are some great points. Awesome. Sweet, guys. 5 more minutes. You guys have any questions or any more takeaways? Or maybe we get a verbal takeaway for the gram here. Post you guys up in the story. All right. 3, 2, 1. Was this a good call today, guys?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, solid, man.
Yep.
Solid.
Let's
go. Much value.
Let's go. Appreciate it. Sweet, guys. Cool. So I will post a link to this doc in the Slack channel there, and then you guys can have it. I'll do that right now. And if you guys got any other questions as well, let me know. And other than that, I'll be on tomorrow's call and we can pick up where we left off. But yeah, guys, appreciate you guys hopping on with me today. Glad this was a good one. I know we covered a lot of ground and dove deep. So yeah, I had a lot of fun and I hope you guys did too.
Thanks a lot for taking your time, man.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, great call. Thanks.
Of course, guys.